Welcome back to the deep dive. We are doing something a little different today. Usually we're looking at a specific event or a specific technology, but today we're sort of zooming out. We're looking at the mechanism behind how we process all of that.
The operating system of our own brains, in a way.
Exactly. We have a stack of research here on what the sources are calling performative metacognition, which is a mouthful.
It is a bit of jargon, for sure.
Right. And honestly, I want to start with the problem that comes way before the fancy terminology. It's that split-second decision. You know, the one you make 100 times a day, you see a headline, a tweet, a video clip, and before you've even really processed the words, you know.
Yeah.
You know if it's true or false.
It feels like knowing, doesn't it? That's the key. It feels like an instinct, like a gut feeling.
A gut check. Yeah, that's the word. But the sources we're looking at today, they argue that this gut check is actually a massive cognitive error, a sleight of hand our own brain is playing on us.
It's a very convincing one.
It is. We aren't checking if the thing is true. We are checking who is saying it. And apparently, we are just terrible at telling the difference between those two actions.
We are. And to be really clear, this isn't just another conversation about fake news or, people being gullible. This is about a structural flaw in how human brains are interacting with the modern world, especially the internet.
A mismatch between our wiring and the environment.
A fundamental mismatch. We're confusing two totally distinct concepts: credibility and soundness. And the research suggests that even the smartest people, maybe, and this is the scary part, especially the smartest people, are falling into this trap.
Why especially them?
Because they think they're immune to it, they think their intelligence protects them, when it might actually just make them better at rationalizing their own gut reactions.
That's the performative part we'll get to later,
Yeah.
Asma. The self-deception.
The trap at the end of the road.
Okay, but let's stick with this core distinction first. Credibility versus soundness. To me, in a normal conversation, those are basically synonyms. If a source is credible, then their argument is sound, right? Why are we prying them apart?
Because they answer two fundamentally different questions, and critically, they use two different parts of your brain. Think of it like two different apps running on your phone.
Okay, so what's the credibility app?
Credibility answers the question, should I trust this source? That's it. It's a social question, it's a shortcut, a heuristic. It is incredibly fast.
So that's looking at the person or the institution. Do they have a PhD? Are they verified on social media? Do they have 1 million followers?
Yes, but it's even more basic than that. Do they look confident? Are they speaking clearly? Is their website well-designed? It's the aesthetics of authority.
The aesthetics of authority. I like that. So it's not just credentials, it's the whole vibe.
It's the whole vibe. It relies on titles, confidence, consensus, reputation. Your brain, specifically what Daniel Kahneman calls the System 1 part of your brain, the fast, automatic, intuitive part, it loves credibility. It's like candy for System 1.
Why? Because it's easy.
Because it's efficient. It can process credibility in milliseconds. You see a person in a white lab coat, System 1 doesn't say, I should evaluate their molecular biology credentials. It just says, doctor, trust, listen. It saves an enormous amount of energy.
Okay, so that's the shortcut. The fast, easy, energy-saving credibility check.
Right.
What is soundness then?
Soundness is the other app, the one that drains your battery. It answers the question, is this reasoning actually valid for this claim?
Okay, that feels different already. It's not about the person.
Not at all. It's a structural question. It requires you to look at the argument itself. What are the premises? Does A actually lead to B? Is the evidence they're citing high quality? Are they ignoring obvious edge cases or counter-arguments?
And that requires System 2 thinking.
It requires System 2. The slow, deliberate, analytical part of the brain, the part that you have to consciously engage.
And that's the part that feels like work, like actual physical work.
It is work. The sources are clear on this. It literally burns more glucose. It is metabolically expensive. So the core tension that this research identifies is that in an information environment that moves at the speed of light, we have, as a society, collectively decided to use credibility as a proxy for soundness.
Because it's cheaper.
Because it's cheaper and it's faster and it feels just as good. We assume that if the person looks like an expert or sounds like an expert or is on our team, their logic must be sound. We swap the hard work of checking the argument for the easy work of checking the ID badge.
Okay, I have to push back on this a little bit.
I want it.
Anyway, because this framing, it sounds like the standard people are lazy and dumb argument.
I see why you'd say that, but it's not.
Well, isn't using credibility as a proxy actually rational sometimes?
Yeah.
I mean, if I go to the emergency room with a broken leg, I'm not going to ask the doctor to prove the physics of bone setting. I'm not going to demand she show me her peer-reviewed papers on casting techniques.
Of course not.
I'm going to look at her badge, see MD, see the hospital around me, and I'm going to say, go ahead. If I didn't do that, I'd be paralyzed. I couldn't function in the world.
You're absolutely right. And the sources actually have a whole section on this. They call it the context defense. They are very explicit that this shortcut isn't inherently bad or wrong. In the right environment, it is what they call efficient cognition.
Right. It has to be. I can't be an expert in everything. I have to outsource my trust to someone.
Exactly. And here's the key reframe. You aren't outsourcing your thinking because you're lazy. You are outsourcing specialized context. The doctor has a universe of context that you don't.
Okay. The source lays out a sort of trust equation here that I found really helpful.
Yes. Credibility plus relevant access plus aligned incentives, reasonable trust.
Okay, let's break that down. We've talked about credibility. That's the MD on the badge. What about relevant access and aligned incentives?
In the doctor example, the doctor has relevant access because she has your medical records, she's seen hundreds of broken legs, and she has years of anatomical and physiological training you just don't have. She has access to the context.
Makes sense. And aligned incentives.
Her incentives are aligned with yours. She operates in a highly regulated system. If she commits malpractice, she loses her license. She could be sued. Her hospital's reputation is on the line. She has a powerful, tangible reason to be right and to help you.
So the trust works because there are guardrails. The system creates a container where the shortcut is safe.
Correct. It works because it is within what the sources call a bounded domain. The doctor is operating within the hospital, within her field of expertise, within a system of accountability. In that bounded domain, deferring to her credibility isn't just easy, it's the most rational thing to do.
So where does this all break down? Because clearly, we're not just talking about ER visits. The world does not feel like a well-run hospital right now.
It breaks because we are living through what academics call context collapse. The internet, social media, it has completely demolished the walls of the hospital. The boundaries are gone.
Context collapse. I hear that term thrown around a lot. What does it actually look like in practice here, with our doctor example?
It looks like that same doctor, the one you correctly and rationally trust to set your leg going on a 3-hour podcast and speaking with extreme confidence and authority about, say, monetary policy or public school curricula or climate change.
Okay, I see that constantly. It's the Nobel disease, right?
Huh.
You win a Nobel Prize in physics,
Yeah.
and suddenly you think you're a world-class expert on nutrition.
That's the perfect example.
And-
And here is the trap. Your System 1 brain sees the doctor tag. It sees the Nobel Prize. It hears the same confident, articulate tone of voice. It sees the smart person aesthetic. So it automatically grants him credibility.
The signal feels the same.
The signal is identical. But look at the rest of the equation. Does he have relevant access to primary climate science data? No. Are his incentives aligned with the public good? Maybe not. His incentive now might be attention or book sales or aligning with a new political tribe. The trust equation fails.
But the feeling of trust remains. That's the problem. The I'm an expert vibe is identical whether he's talking about bones or banks.
Precisely. The signals of credibility no longer reliably map to actual soundness because the domain specificity, the context, is gone. And it's not just experts stepping out of their lane, that's only half the problem.
What's the other half?
The other half is the rise of persuasive communicators who exist entirely outside of any system of accountability.
The influencers.
The influencers,
Yeah.
the gurus. Think about the classic wellness influencer archetype.
Okay, yeah. Perfect skin, beautiful kitchen, calm, confident voice.
Exactly. High aesthetics, massive social proof, millions of followers. System 1 screams, this person is healthy and happy, therefore they know how to make me healthy and happy. The credibility signals are off the charts.
And then they tell you to stop wearing sunscreen and stare directly at the sun to get your energy.
Which is medically unsound, dangerous advice. But because the credibility signal is so high and because they have no license to lose, no board to answer to, the context defense completely fails, you are outsourcing your thinking to someone who not only hasn't done the work, but has an active incentive to give you simple, contrarian, and often wrong answers, because that's what builds an audience.
I want to dig into a specific example here that I think the usual critique of this topic misses. We so often talk about this in the context of, low information voters or people falling for obvious online scams. But the sources are clear this happens to high information people too.
Oh, absolutely. It might even be worse for them in some ways. Look at the financial world. Look at something like Theranos or FTX or any number of the crypto collapses over the last few years.
Right. You're not talking about unsophisticated people.
No. You're talking about incredibly sophisticated venture capitalists, hedge fund managers,
Hmm.
people who pride themselves on their due diligence. And they poured billions of dollars into these companies based almost entirely on the charisma and the perceived credibility of the founder.
They looked the part. They went to Stanford or MIT. They wore the signature black turtleneck or the schlumpy T-shirt. They gave a great TED Talk.
And they had the social proof. The argument wasn't the technology is sound. The argument was, well, Sequoia Capital invested, so it must be legitimate. Or, well, so-and-so from Goldman Sachs is on the board. That is a pure credibility play.
They're using credibility as a proxy for soundness. They didn't check the tech, the soundness. They checked the board members, the credibility.
They outsourced their diligence to the credibility of the other investors. It's a house of cards built on heuristics. So no, this isn't just a dumb person problem. It's a human brain problem.
The shortcut hasn't changed, but the environment has become fundamentally hostile to that shortcut.
That's the perfect summary. The signal-to-noise ratio of looking like an expert versus actually being right is completely out of whack.
Okay, this brings us to the central metaphor of this deep dive, which I honestly found really, really helpful in getting my head around this. The idea of salting your food.
The salting metaphor, I love it because it reframes skepticism completely. Usually we think of skepticism as a binary thing, a wall. You either believe something or you don't. You accept it or you reject it.
All or nothing.
Right. But this frame suggests skepticism is a seasoning. It's an act of calibration. It's something you apply in careful measure.
So walk me through the extremes. What does it look like to get the seasoning wrong? What is undersalting?
Undersalting is what the source calls naive realism. It's swallowing a claim whole without any critical thought, just because the source is trusted. It's flat thinking.
So my favorite podcaster said X, therefore X must be true.
Exactly. Or, I saw it on a news channel I like, so I don't need to check any further. You are eating the dish exactly as the chef served it, without ever asking if it's actually cooked properly or if it suits your personal taste.
I think we all do this with our home team, right? If I see a headline that confirms everything I already believe about the other political party, I will swallow that thing whole. No salt at all, just goes right down.
Of course, it tastes good. It's informational comfort food. It confirms your worldview. But then you have the other extreme, which I think is actually more insidious, especially among the so-called intellectual crowd, and that's oversalting.
The cynic, the debunker.
Exactly. The person who nitpicks everything to death. They find one tiny flaw in an argument, a typo in the article, a slightly awkward phrasing, a source they personally dislike, and they dismiss the entire thing. They take the whole salt shaker and just dump it on the plate.
Oh, you link to a Wikipedia article on line 4.
Yeah.
Your entire 5,000-word argument is invalid. I've seen that 1,000 times.
Right. They confuse minor flaws with total falsehood. And here's the thing. The result is exactly the same as undersalting. They don't learn anything. If you oversalt a dish, it's inedible. If you oversalt information, you reject everything that is new or challenging. You end up in a zero-knowledge state, smudgely protecting what you already think you know.
So the goal isn't just to be a skeptic. The goal is to taste as you go.
It's calibration, it's discernment. You take a bite, you pause, you ask, does this need a grain of salt? Is this particular claim a little wild? Let me just check that one premise. You don't burn the whole restaurant down. You just season the dish so you can actually digest it safely and get some nourishment from it.
But, and this feels like the biggest but in the entire discussion, tasting takes time. And the sources are incredibly clear that speed is the enemy of taste.
Speed is the fundamental constraint. It's the variable that breaks the entire model of careful, calibrated thinking. We're being forced to eat without tasting because the information conveyor belt never, ever stops.
The feed. It just keeps coming. It refreshes every second. If I take 10 minutes to actually paste a claim, to check the soundness, look up the original source, verify the logic, the conversation has already moved on. 10 new outrages have already happened.
And there is a line in the research that just floored me. It's, being late feels worse than being wrong.
That's the one. That is the killer. It explains so much about our online behavior.
Think about the incentive structures of social media. The reward, the dopamine, the likes, the retweets, the engagement. It goes to the first hot take. It goes to the immediate, witty, emotional reaction.
It doesn't go to the person who shows up 3 days later.
Nobody cares about the person who shows up 3 days later and says, actually, I've had some time to reflect and check the data, and the nuance here is really X, Y, and Z. The viral moment is over. The crowd has moved on. You just look like you missed the party.
So we are actively, algorithmically incentivized to use System 1. We are incentivized to react instantly based on credibility markers because using System 2 makes us socially irrelevant.
That's it, exactly. System 2 is slow. Soundness is slow. By the time you verify the soundness of a claim, the digital crowd has moved on to the next thing. So we default to the binary. We sort instead of taste. If the source is green, my tribe, my camp, I swallow it whole, undersalt. If the source is red, the enemy tribe, I reject it reflexively, oversalt.
And there's a social cost to tasting, too, isn't there? It's not just about being late to the party.
Right, that's a huge point. Imagine you're in a group chat with friends or a dinner party. Everyone is bonding over their shared outrage about the current thing. They're emotionally synchronized. It feels good. It feels like connection.
And you're the one who stops the music.
You're the one who stops and says, wait a minute, guys. Are we sure this is true? Let's just check the soundness of this claim before we all get our pitchforks. You are ruining the vibe. You're breaking the connection.
You're that guy, the buzzkill.
You become the outsider. You are signaling that you aren't part of the emotional fabric of the group. So a lot of the time, we undersalt not because we're stupid, but because we want to belong. It's a social survival instinct. We accept what the source calls pre-salted food.
Pre-salted food, what does that mean?
That's when a claim comes from a high-status, highly credible person within your tribe. A thought leader, a politician you admire, a celebrity. You assume, well, they must have checked it, they're smart, they wouldn't just tweet this if it wasn't true. You assume the tasting has been done for you.
Which, in the era of context collapse, is a terrible, terrible assumption.
It's a fatal assumption. Because that high-status person is probably just reacting to their high-status friends who reacted to their friends. It's a cascade of undersalting, a chain reaction of untasted information passing from one credible source to the next.
This is a good place to shift gears into the knowledge, performance, and identity section, because this touches on the deep emotional reason why we feel so insecure about all this. The internet didn't just give us more information, it fundamentally changed what we think being smart looks like.
It absolutely did. It moved knowledge from being a private internal state to being a public performance. The sources call this the shift from knowledge abundance to knowledge threat.
Knowledge threat. Can you explain that? It sounds counterintuitive. More knowledge should be good.
It should be. But before the internet, your world of knowledge was smaller. You could be the acknowledged expert in your local circle. You were the guy who knew about Civil War history, or the woman who knew everything about gardening, or the best mechanic in town. You felt competent within your domain.
Your pond was smaller, so you could be a big fish.
A perfect way to put it. Now you go online, and you instantly see 1,000 people who know more than you do about your special topic. They articulate it better than you, they have better sources than you, they've written a whole blog about it. It creates a feeling of constant intellectual inadequacy.
And it makes our own knowledge feel so lumpy.
Because real knowledge is lumpy. That's what the source points out. It's incredibly deep in some places and completely shallow in others. You might know everything there is to know about 18th century French poetry, but have no idea how a heat pump works. That's normal.
But the internet doesn't reward lumpy knowledge. It rewards smooth knowledge.
It rewards legible knowledge. The thread boy aesthetic, as some call it. The person who can take a complex geopolitical crisis or a dense scientific paper and summarize it in 10 catchy, perfectly formatted tweets.
With the little thread emoji and the 110 at the beginning.
Right, and that looks incredibly smart. It performs well algorithmically. It's clear, confident, and easily digestible, but it's often a shallow performance of understanding, not deep knowledge itself.
So we end up mistaking the ability to summarize information for the ability to understand it.
Exactly. And credibility becomes a proxy for legibility. If you can package the information in a slick, confident way, we assume the information itself must be sound. Meanwhile, the actual lumpy expert might be messy. They might ramble, use confusing jargon, or say, "It depends," a lot.
It depends is the least viral phrase in human history.
It gets 0 retweets. This dynamic creates a really dangerous consequence. We start to treat our opinions as our identity. The source talks about identity attachment.
This is crucial. This explains so much of the toxicity online.
It does, because in a performance-based society, what I know, or more accurately, what I claim to know, becomes a core part of who I am. It's my status, my public avatar. So if you challenge my facts, you aren't just correcting a data point on a spreadsheet.
You're attacking me. You're attacking my status. You're threatening who I am.
This is why the rage is so immediate and so intense. If I'm just factually wrong about a tax policy, I can say, whoops, my mistake. Thanks for the correction. But if my particular view on tax policy is a key part of my smart, compassionate, progressive identity, or my rational, hardworking, conservative identity,
Then admitting you're wrong feels like a death. It feels like a fundamental loss of self, a public humiliation.
so we can't let go. Instead, we deploy our defenses. And the most powerful defense, according to the sources, is moral outrage.
How does that work as a defense?
Outrage is a very effective way to stop a conversation about soundness. It's a conversation ender. If I start screaming that you are evil or a bigot or a terrible person for holding your view, I don't have to engage with the soundness of your argument anymore. I've changed the subject from, is this true, to, are you a good person?
It's a shield, an identity shield.
And the source also reframes overconfidence here in a way I found really empathetic and insightful. We usually think of overconfidence as simple arrogance.
Right, that person is so full of themselves.
But the research suggests it's often not arrogance, it's anxiety management.
We're overconfident because we're scared.
We are terrified of the ambiguity. We're terrified of that knowledge threat we just talked about. In a world where we are constantly confronted with how much we don't know, feeling uncertain is a deeply uncomfortable, even painful state.
So we grab onto certainty like a life raft in a stormy sea.
Exactly. We project extreme confidence, not because we are actually that sure, but because we desperately need to feel sure just to function, to manage the anxiety of it all.
That makes so much sense because true humility, the act of saying, I don't know, or this is complex and I need to read more, it doesn't scale socially. You don't get retweets for that.
No, you get ignored. Or worse, you get pounced on as weak. So the entire incentive structure of the digital world pushes us toward performative certainty and moral outrage.
Which brings us to camps. This is how we manage the chaos, right?
Yeah.
We cluster into tribes. Pro-AI, anti-AI, left-right, vegan, carnivore.
Camps are load balancers for the brain. That's the technical term the source uses, and I think it's brilliant.
Like in a server farm, distributing traffic so the system doesn't crash.
Precisely. Evaluating every single piece of information on its own merits, actually checking the soundness of everything that comes across your feed, is cognitively impossible. It would literally fry your brain.
So we use camps as an aggressive filter.
An epistemic shortcut. The camp answers the question, should I take this seriously? In milliseconds. Is this person in my camp? Yes. Then I listen. No. Then I ignore them or attack them.
It's source dismissal as a survival tactic.
Oh, he has pronouns in his bio. Disregard. Oh, he has a crypto laser eyes profile picture. Disregard. Oh, she works for that media outlet. Disregard. It saves an incredible amount of energy.
But it makes us stupid. It makes us incredibly biased.
It makes us efficient, but yes, it makes us intellectually blind. It replaces what the source calls discernment with mere sorting. We aren't judging the argument anymore. We are just sorting the speaker into a pre-approved bucket. Good guy or bad guy.
And the source points to AI as a particularly powerful disruptor in this landscape. Why does AI break this model even more than it's already broken?
Because AI completely breaks the ancient link between the who and the what. We have millions of years of evolutionary programming that tells us that if an entity can speak fluently, forcefully, and logically, it is a conscious human with status and intent.
Right. Language equals human. That's a deep, deep assumption.
AI decouples that entirely. And AI can produce incredibly sound-sounding arguments. It can have perfect grammar, a sophisticated vocabulary, a calm and confident tone, and infinite patience. It ticks all the credibility boxes.
There's no there there.
There's no there there. It has no belief. It has no intent. It has no lived experience. It is pure signal. It's the ultimate context collapse. It can produce the perfect voice of authority while being completely untethered from reality, just hallucinating wildly.
It's the ultimate credibility signal with zero guaranteed soundness behind it. It could sound like a Rhodes Scholar while making up every single fact.
Exactly. And people's reaction to this is, understandably, a kind of panic. They shift their filter. They stop asking, is this argument sound? And they start asking, was AI involved in making this?
I've felt that myself. If I see an image that looks even slightly AI generated, I have this immediate visceral rejection of it. I don't ask, is it a good or useful image? My only question is it fake?
That is source dismissal as a form of moral hygiene. You reject it to feel clean, to protect the sacred boundary of human-made. But the source argues we need to move past that reactive stance. We need what it calls epistemic charity.
Talk to me about that, because charity sounds soft. It sounds like being nice or giving people the benefit of the doubt.
It's not about being nice. The source uses a powerful chess metaphor. In chess, if you assume your opponent is an idiot, you will lose the game. A strong player assumes their opponent's move is the best possible move they could have made. They try to understand the logic behind it, no matter how strange it seems, so that they can form the strongest possible counter.
So epistemic charity is strategic.
It's strategic intelligence. It's about strengthening your own thinking. If you immediately dismiss an argument just because it comes from the wrong camp or a person you dislike, or even from an AI, you might be blinding yourself to a crucial piece of reality or a flaw in your own position.
You're playing against a weak version of your opponent, so you never get any better.
Exactly. To be truly discerning, you have to be able to hold two thoughts. I dislike or distrust this source, but is there any part of their premise that might be valid?
That is incredibly hard work. It feels emotionally and mentally draining just thinking about it.
Which brings us to what might be the most important part of this entire discussion, the why. Why don't we do this? Why do we almost always settle for the shortcut? It's not because we are lazy or bad people. It's because we are tired.
This section on the energy economics of thinking really hit me. I think we need to spend some real time here because we so often treat critical thinking as a moral issue. If you were a better citizen, you would fact check more.
We moralize it, but the brain is a biological organ. It runs on glucose and oxygen. It has finite resources. And System 2 thinking, checking for soundness, regulating your emotions, suspending judgment is metabolically expensive.
It literally costs energy, like going for a run.
It burns resources. It requires your prefrontal cortex to actively inhibit your amygdala, your emotional fight-or-flight center. That takes a massive amount of effort. And the sources argue that we are failing to think deeply, not because we don't care, but because we are, as a population, neurologically overstimulated and emotionally under-recovered.
Under-recovered. I feel that phrase in my bones. But wait, I spend like 3 hours a night relaxing on my phone. I'm scrolling social media, watching funny videos. Isn't that recovery?
No. And this is the great deception of modern life. According to this research, that is not rest. That is low-grade stimulation.
Ouch. Okay. Tell me more.
When you are scrolling, your brain is not resting. It is processing a relentless, rapid-fire stream of novelty. It is making thousands of micro-judgments. It is comparing, look at their amazing vacation. It is judging, look at that idiot's political opinion. It is reacting emotionally. Oh, that's sad. Oh, that's infuriating.
Your thumb is resting, but your brain is running a triathlon.
Your dopamine system is firing erratically. Your cortisol levels are spiking with every little outrage. You are physically sitting still, but neurologically, you are in a state of high alert. You are depleting the very cognitive resources you need to think clearly the next day.
So I'm draining the tank that I need for System 2 thinking.
Precisely. You're emptying it out. And when the tank is empty, the brain does what any smart system does. It switches to eco mode. And what is eco mode for the human brain? It's System 1. It's shortcuts. It's stereotypes. It's camp-based thinking. It's pure reactive credibility checks.
So when I'm exhausted, I am physiologically more likely to be a partisan hack. It's not a moral failing. It's a biological reality.
100%. The source defines burnout in a really useful way here. Too much unprocessed input combined with too little meaning-making. We are drowning in input, but we never give ourselves the quiet space to process that input into coherent meaning.
Because we don't stop. The moment there's a quiet second, we pull out the phone and start scrolling again.
And this creates a vicious cycle, a doom loop. We're tired and overstimulated, so we rely on simple, prepackaged narrative from our trusted sources. Those narratives are often polarized and frightening, which stresses our nervous system out even more, which makes us more tired, which makes us cling even more tightly to the simple narratives.
Wow, it really is a trap.
It is. The source argues that when someone says, I don't have time to reflect on that, what they usually actually mean is, I don't have the emotional capacity to tolerate uncertainty right now.
That is a profound distinction. Because reflection requires sitting with, I don't know. It requires ambiguity. And if you're already anxious and your nervous system is depleted, I don't know is a physically painful state to be in.
It feels like a threat, so you grab the nearest certainty, even if it's a wrong or harmful one, just to make the spinning stop.
So if we want to fix our broken information ecosystem, the solution might not be more fact-checking tools or media literacy programs. It might be, unironically, take a nap, go for a walk in the woods.
Unironically, yes, restoration is an epistemic act. You cannot have soundness without silence. If you don't give your brain the actual downtime to consolidate information, to switch off the input valve, you physically cannot engage System 2.
This completely reframes the whole digital detox idea for me. It's not just about some fuzzy concept of wellness. It's about preserving your capacity for citizenship. If you want to be a thinking person in a democracy, you have to protect your cognitive energy from being constantly strip-mined.
You have to guard your attention and your capacity for quiet like they are finite, precious resources. Because they are.
Okay, so with that diagnosis, let's talk about the solutions section. It feels a bit daunting, but there are some helpful models here. The source uses a map metaphor that I liked. Wisdom as cartography.
This is all about escaping the false summit. You know the Dunning-Kruger effect, right?
Of course. Where you learn a tiny bit about a subject and immediately think you know everything there is to know.
That's the false summit of Mount Stupid, as it's sometimes called. The source suggests we need to completely reframe our idea of confidence. Confidence shouldn't attach to your position. I'm at the top of the mountain, I have the right answer. It should attach to your process.
The question isn't, am I right? But do I have a good process for figuring out what's true?
And even more, can I still see what I'm missing? Can I still see higher peaks from where I'm standing? True wisdom isn't having the final answer. It's knowing the limits of your own map. It's being able to say, here's where my understanding gets fuzzy.
And acknowledging that all maps are constructions. They are not the territory itself.
The subway map example in the research is perfect here. A subway map is, by any objective measure, geographically false. The lines are straightened, the distances are distorted, the angles are all wrong. If you tried to use it to walk across the city, you'd get hopelessly lost.
But for its specific purpose, navigating the train system, it is the absolute truth. It's the most useful map possible.
Exactly. It's useful for a specific context. So, sound thinking asks, what kind of map am I looking at right now? When you see a viral tweet or a TikTok video, you should ask, is this a subway map? Is this a simplified, elegantly distorted version of reality that's designed to get me from point A, uninformed, to point B, outraged, as quickly as possible?
And a dense academic paper. A topographical map that shows every contour, every nuance, might be more true in a literal sense, but it's completely useless if you just need to know which train to catch.
Right. Sometimes you need the subway map. There's nothing wrong with it, but you have to know it's a subway map. The error comes when you mistake the subway map for the actual territory.
This seems like a key skill for media literacy, which the source touches on. And it makes a distinction between teaching kids and teaching adults.
It does. For kids, the danger is creating a generation of cynics. If you just teach them everything is biased, don't trust anyone, everyone is lying to you, they just check out. They become chronic oversalters.
Then nothing is true, so I might as well just play video games. Mindset.
Exactly. So for kids, the advice is to teach the moves. Simple, foundational logic. What is the claim being made here? What is the reason given for that claim? Does the reason actually support the claim? Very basic stuff.
But for adults, the challenge is different. We're already saturated with information and cynicism.
For adults, the task is to move from organization to distillation.
Okay, what's that distinction?
Organization is the default mode. It's asking, who should I trust? Which sources do I put in the good bucket and which go in the bad bucket? It's all about sorting. Distillation, on the other hand, is asking, what useful information can I extract even from a source I don't fully trust?
Distillation. I like that word. It implies mining for gold in a pile of dirt.
That's the idea. Even from that wellness influencer who is dangerously wrong about sunscreen, can I extract a nugget of truth about the benefits of a whole foods diet? Can I separate the soundness of one claim from the lack of credibility of the source as a whole? It's a much more advanced skill.
It is. But, and we absolutely have to get to this because it's the title of our whole deep dive, there is a massive final trap waiting for us at the end of this journey of self-improvement. Performative metacognition.
This is the sting in the tail, the final boss.
Because right now, listening to this, I'm feeling pretty good about myself. I'm sitting here thinking, yeah, I get it. Use system 2. Don't be a sheep. Taste your food. I'm one of the smart ones who understands this.
And that thought right there, the feeling of, I get it and they don't, that is the trap.
Next question is, I walked right into it.
It's what the source calls the hypocrisy loop. The single biggest danger of learning about cognitive biases is that we immediately weaponize that knowledge against other people. We learn the term System 1 thinking, and we don't use it for self-reflection. We use it as a label for our political enemies.
Oh, look at those idiots over there. They're so emotional and tribal, they're stuck in System 1. I, however, am a dispassionate System 2 thinker.
But the very act of making that judgment, that is a System 1 reaction.
Oh, that is twisted.
It's perfect, isn't it? It is a fast, categorical, ego-protective judgment. You are using the sophisticated vocabulary of wisdom to protect your own ego and signal your status as a thinker. You aren't actually thinking, you are just branding yourself.
So performative metacognition is signaling that you are thinking about how you are thinking without actually doing the hard, humble work of it.
It's wearing the critical thinker costume to a party. And we all do it. I have to be careful. I'm doing it right now. I'm sitting here explaining how the brain works, feeling very pleased with my clear analysis. Am I actually engaging with the counter-arguments to this theory, or am I just enjoying the feeling of being the expert? It's a constant struggle.
It's meta-level arrogance, the arrogance of being aware of arrogance.
The source reminds us of a crucial, humbling fact. Asymmetry is normal. You are not a System 2 person or a System 1 person. No one is. You use System 2 when you are safe, rested, curious, and operating within your domain of expertise. You default to System 1 when you are tired, threatened, angry, or out of your depth. Everyone does both.
So the person screaming on Twitter about politics might be a brilliant, careful physicist who is just having a System 1 moment because they feel their identity is under attack. And I might be calm and rational about politics, but a total System 1 reactor when it comes to a bad referee call against my favorite sports team.
Exactly. We are all profoundly inconsistent. And the source argues that most social conflict arises not because some people are smart and others are dumb, but because we mistake this normal situational asymmetry for a permanent moral failure in others. We judge them for being in eco mode when we just happen to be in performance mode.
That requires an incredible amount of grace. Grace for others and for ourselves.
It does. It requires realizing that the real enemy is unexamined certainty, not the person who happens to be holding it at that moment.
So as we wrap this up, the outro in the research talks about a quiet ethic. What does that look like in practice?
The goal isn't to become a Vulcan, a being of pure logic. You can't live in System 2 all the time. You would burn out in a single day. The goal is what the source calls non-reactive discernment.
And a key part of that seems to be the phrase, rest when you can't.
That's my favorite line from the whole thing. Think clearly when you have the energy and the capacity to do so. When you don't. When you feel tired, angry, overwhelmed, stop. Stop scrolling, stop opining, stop trying to have a take. Just rest.
It's giving yourself permission to opt out, to not have an opinion on everything.
The profound joy of having no opinion. In 2026, that is the ultimate luxury. It's the ability to say, I haven't salted that dish yet, so I'm not going to eat it, and I'm certainly not going to write a 1-star review of the chef.
I love that. I haven't salted that yet. I am absolutely going to start using that.
Alas, just be careful. You don't use it to sound superior to the people who have formed an opinion.
Ah, there it is, the trap again. It's just unavoidable, isn't it?
It's a practice. It's not a destination you arrive at. You never win metacognition. You just get a little better at catching yourself, a little faster each time.
It's about creating that one-beat pause.
That's the most actionable tip. When you feel that surge of emotion, the love, the hate, the righteous certainty, just try to wait one beat before you type, before you speak. Ask yourself, why so fast? That single split second is the space where a reflex can become a thought.
This has been deeply humbling. I feel like I need to go apologize to about a dozen people on the internet. Or better yet, just not log in for a week.
The latter is probably wiser.
Thank you so much for walking us through the minefield of our own minds.
It's always a pleasure to check a map with you.
And to you, the listener. The next time you feel that satisfying click of certainty, that rush of, I know this is true, maybe just reach for the salt shaker first. And maybe, just maybe, go take a nap.
Stay curious.
And stay rested. We'll catch you in the next deep dive.